Hello and welcome back to my studio. It's Lois here from Lois and Morgana Davidson Art, and today I'd like to reshare this really lovely beginner-friendly sunset scene with silhouetted trees and a beautiful setting sun, with a pretty nifty little trick to create the sun itself. But first, a quick peep at my new book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Tips and Techniques for the Complete Beginner, which is now available to order or pre-order, depending on where in the world you are and which shop you choose. I shall leave some links in the description below. And now, let's get on with this really simple watercolour demo. Hi and welcome back. Today we're going to be painting this beautiful semi-abstract sunset scene inspired by a photograph that I found on Pixabay. The link is in the reference below. When I saw it, it actually took my breath away, and I thought, well, I've got to have a go at painting it. I'm sure I'm not going to do it justice, but it's something that I really want to try and paint anyway. So even though my outcome was very different from this, it's certainly inspired by the general composition, which I think is really interesting, with the silhouetted trees against that amazing sunset. I knew that I wanted a very simple, smooth sky, but with an effective sunset glow, so I decided to use hot press paper. This is Saunders Waterford, £140 hot press paper. It's got a lovely smooth surface, so let's see if we can get a beautiful smooth sunset. It's taped to my board with ordinary decorators masking tape. My board's at an angle of 45 degrees, and I'm using the wet in wet technique here. I've got a bamboo flat or hake brush from AliExpress that I bought a couple of years ago, and I'm wetting the sky all over. I'm only going to use 3 colours for this painting. This is the first, and it's yellow ochre. And I'm going to cover most of the sky with yellow ochre. I'm hoping that will give me a sort of underlying glow for my setting sun, and in order to then put on my beautiful, rich French vermilion, which is my second colour. So using the same brush, just sweeping it in really thick and rich, straight from the tube. Don't worry if it's looking a little bit sort of streaky at the moment. The beauty of the wet in wet technique is that we can add a bit of water to it using the water spray, and we can tip and tilt it. And that's what I'm going to do. But first I'm going to put in my third colour, which is indigo. And you can see how the indigo is mixing with the yellow ochre, and it'll mix and blend a bit with the French vermilion. And I should end up with some really interesting neutral browny grey tones for my clouds. And that should draw attention to and complement this beautiful bright French vermilion. You see, I've tipped my board around 90 degrees, and the paint is now running and flowing because I sprayed it with my mister spray, and now I'm just feathering the brush through it in order to control the directionality of the paint and to build up my beautiful softly diffused sunset using just these 3 colours. I'll mop up any sort of spills or runs from the tilted paint as I go, and turning the board back round the right way and laying it flat should hopefully keep those beautiful washes in exactly the same sort of place that they are. They'll just continue to soften as they dry. The next thing I'm going to do is use quite a nice little technique or trick to produce my setting sun shape. I've got a small coin, it's about 1 centimetre or ½ inch across. I'm going to wrap it in a tissue, so I've got the profile, the round profile of the coin covered in paper tissue. And I'm going to place that onto my wet paint where I want my sun, my setting sun, so it's quite low in the sky, and then just gently press down. When I lift it off, you can see that the tissue has lifted off the wet paint, and I want some sort of cloud effects going across the sun. So I'm going to take a dry paintbrush. It's important that it's dry, because if you use a wet paintbrush for this, you might get runbacks. With my dry paintbrush, I'm just pulling a bit of the wet paint across the sun with my small calligraphy brush for a couple of little subtle marks. And now I've got to leave it to dry completely, and then I'll come back and I'll put in the silhouetted land and the trees. So here it is, it's dried beautifully, and I've now got my board back up at 45 degrees, and I'm mixing up a rich dark mixture using my indigo and my French vermilion with a little touch of the raw yellow ochre, but not too much. And this is my size 14 Escoda Ultimo synthetic mop brush, and I'm just roughing in just very quickly and loosely a rough shape for the land. I'm going to be really loose and very quick putting these marks in because I don't want any detail. I just want it to look sort of fresh and just a very stark silhouette against the sunset. The sunset here, I want that to be the star of the show. The sun's the focal point. The trees are going to be like a sort of framing device that draws attention to the sky. So now I'm going to use the belly of the brush and the tips of the brush in that same colour to rough in a few tree canopies, kind of joined together, but with some sort of sky holes in them, so you can see the sunset between and through the canopies. And then once I've got my canopies in, then I can go in with my calligraphy brush and just put in a few sort of vertical and shallow diagonal marks for tree trunks and branches, just joining the canopies to the land. Keeping it really simple, really loose. I just want these very sort of scruffy shapes just to indicate these beautiful trees. Don't worry if things look a bit kind of sketchy and a bit rough. That's what we're looking for. The sunset and the whole sky is so smooth and softly diffused on the hot press paper that we need some sort of jagged, rough marks in the trees and the land to kind of contrast with the smoothness of the sky. I think it's these kinds of polar opposites, the soft marks and the hard marks, that can really pull a painting together. And even something as simple as this can end up being very effective if you think about these sort of contrasts and juxtapositions as you paint. So just dotting in a few little ragged sort of canopies, branches, leaves coming off of these trees just to finish them off and add more to that kind of very sort of ragged, sort of hard-edged look, but still with some soft edges amongst the trees as well. And you can see the sunset really shining well through these trees. And it's at this point now that I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to use my artistic license to build up the bank a little more on the right here and to add a couple more trees. I've painted them in exactly the same way with the synthetic mop brush and then the calligraphy brush for the trunks, just keeping it really rough. And I think I'm almost done, just a few tweaks and little finishing touches, dots and dashes here and there. And so you could leave it at that if you prefer a sort of empty sky, but I'm going to add a few birds using the tips of my small calligraphy brush, but I'm making sure to keep them really small. I think a few birds around near to the setting sun kind of add to that evening look with the birds sort of going home to roost, and it also works to create a tiny bit of detail around the setting sun, which is of course our focal point. You can see that I'm keeping the birds very small so they don't sort of intrude on the scene. So I think that's just about finished. Now just to take off the tape and have a look and see if it looks okay with its clean white border, which gives us an idea of what it would look like if it was to be framed. So I hope that you'll give this sort of thing a try. It can be a lovely thing to do, even if you don't have hot press paper. It can be done on cold press paper just as easily. I think I'm going to add a couple more birds actually. I'm looking at this and the birds that I've got, I like them, but I think I need a couple more around the sun on the right and around it, if you see what I mean. But I mean, only add more birds or any birds at all if you want to. They can make or break a painting, and I think here they look really good as long as you keep them nice and small. I really hope you found this very simple tutorial useful, and it'll encourage you hopefully to experiment with some slightly different colours and just play around with effects, especially for sunsets and sunrises where you can have beautiful silhouetted trees that really offset the simplicity and beauty of the washes in the sky. Well, I hope that was helpful. Please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And thank you so much to everyone that supports us on Patreon. Please follow the links below, either to purchase my new book or to follow us and support us on Patreon. Many thanks in advance. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.